Okay. I did not write it at the top, but it is a trimming demo. I'm going to be trimming. All right, pass that around real quick. Feel the corner. Like, stick your hand inside the bowl like this, and like it's a pinch pot, and feel the very corner where the excess clay is. When you guys go to trim, you need to know what you're working with the thickness of the corner of the bowl, okay? If it's really, really thick, we have to trim all that excess clay off. If you did really well and it's thin, you're going to barely trim any, and you might not even trim a foot. So the first thing you have to do is check it. First of all, and I wrote it in the notes, your bowls have to be at what stage? Leather hard, okay? They must be leather hard. There's a bowl down here. I don't know if this is someone else's. No, that's already trimmed too. Last session there were multiple bowls that someone would make a bowl like this, and it's like, hooray, I'm so good, I did it, it's awesome. And then they leave it on their shelf to dry out, to bone dry. And then they couldn't trim it. So then I wouldn't grade it. I think I had already made the statement that I recycled over 50 bowls from the last session of people that just left them out. You have to take the responsibility of bagging them up, okay? So we need to keep these leather hard. What I would do if I made a bowl, I would put it on my nice big white wear board that's out there. I would bag it up right away, and then the next day, let's say you made 2 bowls today. I need you guys to think about this. I made 2 bowls, and I came in today and they're really, really wet, but I would like to trim them. What could you do? Go put them outside. Stick them out like this for 5 or 10 minutes, turn it over like this for 5 or 10 minutes, and then you have a good 15, 20 minutes to trim your pots, okay? Or, worst thing, and it's not even the worst thing, let's say you go out there near the end of the period and finally they're leather hard, okay? Then you just put them back in your bag and they're perfect for tomorrow, okay? You have to make some choices and decisions on this. It's not just going to happen out of thin air that everything's going to be perfect and leather hard. If you have bowls now, today you might be able to trim. You come in during lunch. I would be trimming in the next day or so so that it's fresh in your mind, okay? So leather hard bowls only. When you touch the bowl, if it sticks, if my fingers stick to the bowl when I touch it, it's too wet. Too wet. If it's very white and chalky and I scratch it, I will not be able to trim because the lugs that I put on the pot to hold it down, and these little pieces of clay at the rim of the pot, they will suck, the bone dry bowl will suck the water out of the lugs, and it'll start rattling while you're trimming, and it'll finally come off. We can't trim it bone dry. So make sure, and how you can tell also, if you push on it and it still makes a dent, then it is leather hard, okay? So leather hard, feel the thickness. I have about that much thickness at the bottom. I'm gonna trim all that off like this, like my diagram number 2, okay? So feel the thickness. Next, we're gonna center this upside down so we can trim the base. Is that centered? Okay, how do I center it? Do I just kind of go like this, please center? I move it to where?
Use the rings.
Use the rings. So there are circles. If somehow your bat doesn't have rings on it, because there are people that throw all the time and they don't put the bats back on with the rings on. Not all of them have them. These rings, I made the rings. I sat there all day long carving these rings in all these bats. So what you do is okay, let's say this. I remember this last period too. Let's say one side of your bowl is higher than the other. If you want, try to put this in the middle. This is almost like what we did with the coil bowl. You put it in the middle and you hold your fettering knife and you make a mark like that, and then you cut it off. You know what I mean? So you make a line, you trim it, like just cut it, then now it's even and you can put it here. Okay? So let's get this centered. I'm looking at my rim. We're centering the rim. We're not centering the base. We're centering the rim. Even if your base is wobbling like this, we're centering the rim. So I'm looking at the distance from my rim to the next circle, and that it's an equal distance all the way around. Pretty good. Okay? So now we want to fix that to the bat. Ooh, I maybe added too much water to this. My clay was a little dry last period, so. We're going to take some clay and put lugs on the clay. You do not need a giant chunk of clay. I don't know why, but people are really scared about this sometimes, and they put this big giant lug of clay like that big on the pot, okay, and they put like 10 of them to where it's like engulfed, okay? If your pot is coming off, it's because it's probably what? No, dry. It's probably bone dry. So I'm going to take 2 small pieces of clay. I'm going to flatten them a little bit, press them up against this side, and I'm going to put it over here on this side like that. Why put the 2 of them across from each other and then press into the bowl at the same time? Why do that? Yeah, so it doesn't push it out of center. So I just push it down to get it to stick there. I'm pushing against the wheel head.
I did that too.
So there's my little flat piece there. I mean, you can see there's not a lot of clay on this. I put the other 2 on at the same time, like that. Now, if I mess this up a little bit, you know, down at the base, or actually the rim, if I mess that up a little bit, I could always smooth it out after I'm done trimming. And the people that get a higher grade on this, and the people who keep their pots and are proud of their pots, are the people that when the pot comes off the wheel, they go over there, they sit at the table with a rubber rib, they smooth it out 100% and make it real nice. Okay? All right, so what I want to do, if you look at number 1, most of our bowls have a curve on the inside, and then on the outside it goes from the rim to the base straight. A lot of our bowls look like number 1. What we want to do is we want to trim the corner off of this and this, okay, so that it looks like number 2. We just want a nice even flow through the pot, and even thickness. So to do that, look at my bowl. Should I hold my bowl, trim? So I'm going to use this one first. Then I'm going to use this one second. This one first. This one second. Or you can just use this one. It's not a big deal. I just like to use the big one first for some reason. Just have it. So am I going to hold this straight up? Am I going to hold it horizontal like this, or am I going to hold it at an angle? Why? What showed you that? What told you that? Huh? Oh, the notes did? Yeah, and the curve of the bowl. Okay? Your bowl is going like this. Really, if you think about it, we just want that hump to be gone. So we're going to hold it at the angle of the bowl. That's what we're going to hold it at, and we're going to trim that off. All right? So let's do it. Here we are again. Arms on our legs. My head's over the clay. I'm very stable. Everything. Coning, centering, opening, pulling. My hands are touching each other to support. Okay? I still see people from time to time doing this stuff like this. Ah! And they don't have any control. So I'm going to hold my trimming tool at an angle. I got a little hard clay on it, so I'm actually going to scrape that off. I'm holding my other hand on it like this. It's at an angle. Watch how fast I go. I'm adding a little bit of pressure. If it flies on the floor, make sure you clean it up because it's valuable time that's going to prolong my life of no silicosis. So see how much I'm trimming off? I want my bowl to flow from the rim all the way to the bottom of the pot. So the whole time, what is this line right here called? See if you, implied line. Whoa, you're impressive sometimes. So I'm looking at the implied line the whole time to see if it just looks like a constant flow. We're not trimming the rim of our pot. We threw the thickness that we wanted. We just have a little bit of thickness in the bottom. Okay? So I hold it at an angle. I think that that's pretty good. Most of that part's trimmed off, and from the rim to my foot, it's a good flow. I got a little bit of funky excess clay right here. I just shaved that off just a little bit. Now, here is the big difference between last time and this time. If I want, my pot's a little dry. I never smooth with a sponge. I get it wet, and then I smooth with my finger. Smoothing with a sponge brings out all of the sand in the clay. Like all the soft clay wipes away with a sponge, leaving the sand exposed. So here's your option. And I did not write this up on the notes, but if you pay attention, you're going to have some better options here than last session. If you trim that off and it's a good thickness, and you smooth this out like this, like I just did, and you write your name on it, I will count that as a bowl. Okay? We are doing feet like this. Okay? We are doing feet like this, where we are trimming a ring in the bottom so that it takes out more of the thickness and then it sits on a foot and looks nice. We are doing that. But if you choose not to, and you trim that first part, you smooth it, I will count it as a bowl. Okay? But if you do this, you could have a higher, like remember, if you have 3 bowls, you have a chance for a 90 to a 99. If you did the feet, you would have a 98, 99. If you did the other one, you could have like a 91, maybe a 92. Okay? The reason I'm doing that, you guys have a little bit less time than they had. So I'm going to make sure that that you guys can still be successful. It's not so much about the foot anymore, it's just having a good thickness through the pot. If I pick this up, and that's what I'm going to do, when I grade this, if you choose this first option, I'm going to pick this up, and if it's still really, really thick, I'm not going to count it as a bowl. Okay? So when you take this off the wheel, you'll feel the bottom a little bit. If you still think it's really thick, you need to put it back on and trim more off. Okay? So you can just smooth that out, put your name and period on it, and count it as a bowl. Now, the next part is what we do to make a foot in a bowl. And that's what they all had to do. So we are at number 7. Carve a notch / foot out of the side bottom. So I'm at number 2 up on my red drawing right there. So it just goes from the rim to the base. I want to carve a notch out that makes it look like number 3. It's like I cut out a 90-degree angle out of my pot. So if I want to carve that notch out, should I hold it at an angle like this? Should I hold it horizontal like this? Should I hold it vertical like this? Vertical. Because I'm going to go in like this and start carving away until I get to the bottom of my pot. All I'm doing is carving a notch out of that. It's going to give me a visual foot. This thing right here. That, the reason that we used to do feet in high school was that we always, when we glazed our pots, we would put some glaze in the inside and we would roll around like this, and then we'd dunk the outside in another glaze by holding the foot. So it does give you a place to do that, but it's a nice way to sit on the, it's a nice way for the bowl to sit on that foot. It raises it up a little bit. So what I'm going to do, my hands are, so I have the little one, and it's the triangular one with the edge. I'm going to go down the side of the pot, not totally the thickness of the tool, just a little bit less than that. I hold my hand steady, and I start going in slowly. I'm sure some people will be trying to keep these little swirly things for their project. Can I find these swirly things? So I cut that notch out like that. That's what number 3 looks like. That is my foot right there. Now there's one problem. This ledge right here. What about that? What can you tell me about that? That ledge. It doesn't... It's not angled. It doesn't go with what part of the pot? The flow. It doesn't go with the inside of the pot. We want the inside curve to match the outside curve. So this little hump right here doesn't go with it. So what should I do with it? Just push on it, squeeze it,
Trim it off.
trim it off. So should I hold my tool straight up, horizontal, or at an angle? So here, I'll try to do it over here so you guys can see. I hold it at an angle like this. I shave it, and I'm kind of rolling it. I'll give you guys a little bit of insight too. As you're doing this, if you take your tool and you dig it down like this, you're gonna make these lines on the bottom of your pot there. So just do it softly and hold it at an angle. All right, so now once again, I have a flow going from my rim to the foot, okay? I got an angle here. This is number 8, soften the edge. I just take my trim tool right here. I just shave off that little corner. If you want at this point, you could actually take your finger and smooth all this out. I got a weird funky piece of clay down here that I just had to shave off. So use your finger to smooth it out. Okay, now I want to define how thick my foot's gonna be. So even on the notes it says number 9, hold it like a pencil. I'm gonna hold this like a pencil like this, and I'm gonna carve a line just inside my foot that is my pinky finger thickness like this, maybe a little bit less. So I'm gonna hold this at an angle, this part right here, the triangular part, hold it like a pencil. I'm gonna press down like that, stand up so you guys can see what I did. I held it like this, I pressed it down, I made a circle line, okay? That is my foot right here. Now I'm gonna trim some of this out. Now, if you paid attention to your thickness before you trimmed, if you opened it too far and it's so thin, should I trim this out?
No.
You shouldn't, because you'll just go through the bottom. So there's some decisions to be made while you're doing it. So I felt mine was actually pretty thick on the bottom, so I'm gonna hold it like a pencil again. So as I'm doing all this, what part of the clock am I doing it on? 4 o'clock, the same. I probably don't mention that enough with trimming. So I'm gonna hold this at an angle like this. I'm gonna start, so remember, go nice and fast because we want to go through a bunch of times. I'm gonna dig down and I'm gonna go towards 4 o'clock. If it fills up with a bunch of crazy clay like that, let it go. Start back where you left off. So all I'm doing is digging that corner in there. I'm trying to dig out the same amount of clay as I go. What was the line for that I drew? What's it tell me what to do?
Stop.
To stop. I didn't figure out that. I didn't figure that little line out for years until I became a teacher, and my students would keep trimming, 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 and they just go right off the edge. Okay, so that line is there for you to stop. So I trim a little bit more, like that. Will you lift up the camera and do it and hold it up over it real quick so that the people can see it? Don't shake like that so much. I'm just kidding. So hold it up over it so that my students who slacked and weren't here today can see this. So I'm gonna dig this in a little bit right there.